Hi, my name is Tom Schultz. I'm here today to share with you a 30-year spiritual journey that I traveled. In my right hand here, I have the most popular, the most read book in the world, the Holy Bible. In my left hand here, I have a book about a man voted the most influential person in the 20th century, someone named Albert Einstein. The journey that I'm going to take you on is one similar to the one followed by Albert Einstein. Now, Einstein came up with these incredible, brilliant ideas in the area of physics. And you might ask, how did he come up with these ideas? One of the things he did was to take the work of one of his predecessors very seriously, very literally. In particular, I'm talking about a scientist named Maxwell. Now, Maxwell was a man who came up with these incredible mathematical equations that describe the behavior of electricity. Well, one of the predictions of the solution to these equations is the idea that the speed of light is constant no matter how you measure it, whether you're standing still and measuring the velocity of a photon, or whether you yourself are traveling, say, half the speed of light and glance over and measure the speed of a photon. It's a constant, 186,000 miles per second. Well, the brilliant insight that Einstein had was, he did the following. He said, let's assume that that's fact, that that's real. His colleagues at the time scoffed at the idea, oh, that interpretation can't be right. Einstein said, let's assume it is correct, and he worked backwards. Assuming that's correct, he concluded the only way for that to be correct is for time itself to slow down under certain contexts. Okay, so the journey that I'm going to take you on has that same kind of Einstein thinking. In particular, what we're going to do is we're going to examine verses in the Bible here. And we're going to look at them and interpret them as if they're real, they are fact, they are truth. In particular, we're going to examine metaphors of God. Now, what's a metaphor of God? A metaphor of God has the form of God is and then a noun. If you were to do a text search in the Bible, you'd come up with exactly 3 metaphors for God. God is spirit, God is light, and God is love. For this particular video, we're only going to talk about the latter, God is love. In the book that I'm writing, I will cover all 3. Okay, so let's assume for a minute that God is love, really is love. I'm going to take that literally. In the Bible, we also read a number of places, a number of verses that talk about God being in us. Okay, so God is love, and God is in us. Now, can we do an experiment that would illustrate this, that would demonstrate this? And so what I'm going to do is the following. Okay, we have a picture here. Assume this picture is God, okay? And we have a little test tube here. Let's assume this is you, okay, an empty vessel here. Okay, we said we're going to assume God truly is love here, okay? And so we're going to put a little food color in here. God is love, so love, Valentine's Day, red, so we're going to make God red in this particular context here. Okay, so the question that we want to answer here is, can we demonstrate this basic concept? So here you are, an empty vessel, and here's God, okay? Now, for God to be in you, what does that look like? Well, it looks like the following here. Okay, and so we have a little indicator here that suggests we poured in about 50 milliliters of God into you here. So it's kind of a boring demonstration, so what's the point of all of this? So imagine this is you. You're going, oh, okay, that's nice. God is in me. But you're glancing up here at the speaker and going, gosh, is there a way of getting more of God in me? Here I am, I'm full. Is there a way of experiencing more of God? And the answer is yes. And we will expand our experiment to do something a little bit more elaborate here. Okay, consider the following. Okay, here's you. Here's God. In the previous demonstration, we were able to show 50 milliliters of God going into you. Okay, what happens if we do the following here? Well, as you can see, we get a lot more than 50 milliliters of God. We're able to experience much more. And why is that? Because of this thing right here. Now, if this is you, and say this is another person, what is this thing in between here? And the claim that I'm making is this is God, because we're treating this as literal. If God is love, love is a connecting force here. Okay, and love is a consequence of a shared event, a shared experience. And to illustrate this, consider the story of Lazarus, okay, in the Bible. In John 11, we read about Mary. Mary and Martha and Lazarus were siblings, and they were all friends with Jesus. In John 11, Mary comes to Jesus and says, Lazarus, the one you love, is dying, and she wants him to come with him to save him. And he basically blows her off. And in fact, he sticks around another 2 days, okay? So finally, 2 days later, he goes to Bethany where Lazarus is at. And Martha comes out to greet him and basically says, my brother, he's already dead. He's been in the tomb for 4 days. He didn't just die, he is really dead. The body is basically, at this point, deteriorating, and it's a lot of really bad odor. Okay. Mary then comes out with a bunch of friends, and she sees Jesus, and she runs up to him, and she bursts into tears. And the people around her coming with her also burst into tears. So what does Jesus do? He ends up bursting into tears himself. The smallest verse in the entire Bible, Jesus wept. Now you might ask, well, why would Jesus be crying? Okay, because he knows that he has this power to raise him from the dead. Not only does he have this power, he knows he is going to raise him from the dead. So why is he crying? And the reason why he's crying is because Jesus was a friend to Lazarus and Mary and Martha. As a result of being friends and sharing experiences together, there was a bond, a connectedness that formed. Okay, to illustrate what this might look like, consider the following here. Okay? Okay, assume this is Mary here. Okay, and she starts out feeling lots of love. And then her brother Lazarus dies, okay? And suddenly there is a darkness that is in her. Okay, so now instead of feeling love, she's feeling much sadness, okay? And she bursts into tears, so her world is now dark. Okay, so what happens here is Jesus comes along, okay, he comes along here. As soon as Jesus sees Mary crying, he starts to cry. And you can visualize the following. The sadness and tears coming that are in Mary come out of Mary and flow into Jesus. And that's why he's crying. It's the result of a shared experience.